It looked like a routine moment in a tense late-game situation, a 51-yard attempt, wind in the air, the stadium leaning forward. Vikings kicker Will Reichard stepped into the kick, launched the ball, and for a heartbeat, it tracked true. Then, impossibly, it bent. The ball took a sharp right turn in mid-flight and sailed well wide of the uprights. The Browns celebrated. The Vikings stared. No one on the field, and crucially, no one in the officials' crew, immediately had an answer. Only after the game did slow-motion replay reveal what many fans suspected. The ball clipped something on the way up. On the broadcast's rewind, the diagonal line of the Skycam cable comes into frame at the exact moment the football crosses its path. The contact, subtle, almost cinematic, is visible. The ball changes direction right at that point. It's the kind of detail that's easy to miss in real time, and even harder for referees whose job is already impossible fast. But when you slow it down frame by frame, the physics are unmistakable. The ball's trajectory was altered by an external object, one that has nothing to do with the play itself. If officials had recognized the contact, the correct remedy under the rules would have been a re-kick. That's what makes this detail painful for Minnesota fans and near fatal for Reichard's previously perfect kicking season. A legitimate game-altering do-over arguably never happened. Instead, the Browns took over on downs with a 70-14 lead. The Vikings rallied afterward and ultimately won 21-17. So the missed kick didn't decide the final outcome. But the episode still raises serious questions about technology, stadium setup, and the scope of human error in modern football. There are two layers to unpack here. The first is technical. How does a Skycam cable suspended high above the field to support live broadcast angles come to intersect a football's path? Stadiums and broadcast crews spend enormous effort mapping camera trajectories, cable heights, and safe zones. Skycams are designed to stay out of play, but footballs fly unpredictably, and a 51-yard attempt arcs in a path that can intersect with a cable if the timing and geometry align. It's a freak occurrence, rare but possible. On a night when two teams are separated by a handful of points, rare feels suddenly catastrophic. The second layer is procedural. Who is responsible when outside equipment affects a live play? In the ideal world, referees, replay officials, and stadium operations would act as a single safety net. If a pause or review is warranted, it would be called immediately. But the modern game moves at warp speed. Officials are watching bodies and ball while cameras and broadcast directors are watching for the perfect shot. No one has a direct line that says stop external interference. Replays that reveal the issue often arrive only after the whistle has been blown and the next series has started. In this case, neither the Vikings nor coach Kevin O'Connell protested. Reichard himself didn't seem to realize what had happened. By the time the broadcast replay made the cable visible to millions, the game had already moved on. This isn't the first time the Skycam has entered the narrative of a play. The same day, down in New Jersey, a Dallas Jets game featured a fortuitous, or unfortunate, depending on your perspective, carom when a batted pass struck the Skycam and ricocheted back to the field. That bounce cost the Jets a possible interception. Equipment making contact with live play is not a clean theoretical problem. It's an operational hazard that has affected 2 games in one weekend. That concentration should be enough to trigger a thorough review. Are the cables positioned correctly? Are redundancies in place? Can replay officials be given clearer protocols to pause and assess potential outside interference when broadcast replay suggests a problem? There's also the human element to consider. Referees have to adjudicate dozens of split-second actions. Offsides, holding, false starts, targeting, the list goes on. Asking them to simultaneously account for equipment high above the field, to see a collision that happens in a fraction of a second, often obscured by players and sideline chaos, is a heavy lift. Replay helped catch the shoestring interceptions and marginal out-of-bounds calls long before camera rigs became part of the problem. But replay is only as useful as the people watching it and the rules that empower them to act. If replay shows a cable interference after the fact, do the rules allow the league to retroactively change the outcome or order a re-kick? The practical answer is usually no. Once the next play has been run without protest, the moment is, for practical purposes, closed. League officials will almost certainly review the footage. The questions they must answer are straightforward but consequential. Was there contact? If so, why wasn't the play stopped or reviewed? Was a re-kick warranted? And perhaps most importantly, what steps can be taken to prevent this from happening again? The NFL and stadium operators will need to examine camera rigging standards and consider additional safeguards, perhaps stricter clearance rules for Skycam trajectories, automated alerts when equipment intersects defined paths, or new replay protocols that flag potential external interference for immediate review. Fans and players are right to be frustrated. For a kicker who had been perfect all season, and for the Vikings in a tight game, that miss may sting as an avoidable aberration. Even though Minnesota won, the narrative that Reichard's perfect streak was lost to a television cable is maddeningly emblematic of the modern game, an extraordinary athlete undone by an extraordinary preventable mishap. For Browns fans, the narrow reprieve was a momentary gift. For neutrals, it's a reminder that the technology that makes broadcast cinematic can also, in the wrong circumstance, intrude on the contest itself. There's a deeper cultural angle here, too. We live in an era where every glance, stumble, and bounce is scrutinized at 4K, 60 frames per second. Plays that once would have been chalked up to the ball just bouncing funny can now be disassembled and debated endlessly. That's good for transparency and accountability, but it also means the list of things that can go wrong keeps lengthening. We ask more of our officials and our technology, and the gaps between expectation and reality get more obvious when they fail. So what should fans expect next? First, an explanation from the league and possibly the stadium about how the Skycam was routed and whether protocol was breached. Second, a discussion about whether replay review processes need expansion to include external interference specifically, and how to do that without grinding the game to a halt. Third, a conversation about equipment positioning that isn't just technical but operational. Who checks the rigs, how often, and under whose authority can adjustments be made during a game? In the end, this is a solvable problem. It doesn't require a rule change to the fundamentals of football. It requires attention, accountability, and a willingness to adapt logistics to the realities of live sport. Players shouldn't have to worry about dangling cables when they're focused on the ball. Officials shouldn't be expected to catch every anomaly in real time. And fans, who pay to see a fair contest determined by the athletes, not the angle of a television camera, deserve better. For now, the image of that ball veering off course after kissing a Skycam cable will replay in highlight reels and talk shows, a small, surreal emblem of how the tools that bring us closer to the game can sometimes, ironically, push us farther from the clean outcome we expect. The league will review, questions will be answered, and no doubt engineers will be dispatched to ensure the next long attempt sails free of interference. Football is a game of inches. It's time the sports technology and its guardians respect that as much as the players on the field do.